unlike the tweets that we saw, which clearly said that these suspects, or some of them, would not be released, at least the Attorney General has indicated the willingness to have the court order implemented, notwithstanding, of course, instances where he must have read these orders upside down. Right, Honourable Speaker and Honourable colleagues, as the Attorney General was communicating, I have been really touched and concerned about a number of issues. The Attorney General knows very well that a person can only be held in prison on a valid warrant. The order of court, which literally dismantled, and I mean literally, not technically, dismantled the orders of the defunct court-martial, caused the warrants upon which these people were remanded to expire. But in the case of retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye and Hajj Obeid Kamlegea, even without the orders of the Supreme Court, the warrant itself was expiring on Monday, yesterday, and it did expire. So, my question to the Attorney General, currently for these people or persons that are being held, on whose orders, on whose valid warrants do they continue to be in prison? The second, Right Honourable Speaker, relates to the DPP liaising with the General Court Martial. What is the DPP's business? The DPP is empowered under the law to commence prosecutions against any person of her choice, provided there is evidence she has before her. The reverse is not true, that the DPP goes around fishing for cases. Number three, Right Honourable Speaker, but this time they are telling the DPP to be the one to go around fishing cases from persons that have been conducting business illegally. Do not forget that until Friday, 31st, there was a decision of the Constitutional Court which declared that this is not a court of law. So whatever they've been doing, they secured an interim order from the Supreme Court, and the order was to stay execution. Execution in this case was purely the transfer of files from the General Court Martial or from the Courts Martial to the civil courts. You could not stay a declaration. You can't stay a declaration. That declaration, that interim order, was used by the General Court Martial, not DPP, to continue and to commence fresh prosecutions. Thirdly, Right Honourable Speaker, from the Attorney General's communication, I have not even had anything to do with timelines. Timelines, so as long as they are doing their consultations, these people can be in prison now on orders of the Attorney General. Where, under the law, does the Attorney General get the powers to remand or continue an illegal remand or to detain? Literally what he has done is to amend the orders of court.
Our lawyers who represent Dr. Besigye and Hajj Obeid visited the Commissioner General of Prisons. And he said his understanding was that people needed to leave, Besigye and Hajj Obeid needed to leave his prison on Friday when the judgment became effective. And he said he was there seated waiting for the Attorney General. Up to yesterday, the Attorney General had disappeared from him. The last time this happened, the last time people were in Ruzira on no warrant was after the fall of Idi Amin. I interviewed Brigadier Ssemujju when I was a journalist, and he said they were driven to Ruzira, and they were told, you go there, the warrant will come. So effectively, I didn't know that things that were done by Amin soldiers and after can be done by Honorable Kiwanuka Kiryowa almost 40 years later. That's the information I wanted to give you.
I thank you for relating to what you did not know that Honorable Kiwanuka can do. Right, Honorable Speaker, I do not want to end at criticizing and critiquing my brother. I think I want to give some way forward. If I were in his unenviable position, this is what I would do. From Friday through to Monday, I would not sleep. I would require the information from the General Court Martial relating to all prisoners that are held on orders of the General Court Martial, now deceased. From that point, I would advise government to sieve out all political prisoners, matters which are not pure crime, and say, let us go and do the honorable thing of withdrawing. That someone can continue to be in prison, and the Attorney General is busy advising on somebody who was putting on a beret, a red beret, whether he should remain in prison. The third thing I would do, and for more than four years now, third thing I would do is to advise the police to immediately approach the General Court Martial, obtain all those files where we feel it is pure crime, a suspicion of crime, not suspicion of politics. Then I would advise that police would get those people from wherever they are upon release. But for you, you cannot say you are complying with the court order without releasing these people. At least do the ugly thing you've been doing of arresting them at the entrance or exit of the prison, the same way you've been arresting them from court. But any continuity in detention is illegal. Finally, I am concerned as a leader in this country. Immediately upon release of the judgment, Colonel Chris Magezi, who is said to be an assistant to General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, issued a statement which he called the official statement from the UPDF, and it was clear and categorical. They shall not be released until General Museveni, the Commander-in-Chief, gives us orders to release them. And that is the basis upon which we challenged the constitutionality of the court-martial, because it is dependent on orders of the chairman of the High Command, who is General Museveni. Membership includes his son, who is now tweeting to say we cannot release. Mr. Speaker, for how long are we going to continue like this as a country? You have a dignified Attorney General. That man knows the law, by the way. Even when he chooses to disobey or to ill-advise, at least he knows the law. Now, we receive another statement from the President. Half of it was dignified. The second half was very dignifying. You hear from the President, and what he says that this country is not governed by judges and lawyers, where I agree. This country is governed by a constitution. Anybody who does not want to obey this constitution should give us our peace by leaving. I am concerned about the tweets of General Kainerugaba. You saw when he said that he was going to attack the mercenaries in Congo. A few days later, it happened. How are our neighbors going to take us? You crack a war inside, you crack a war outside. Why? Is it the Constitution, Mr. Speaker?
The Attorney General has correctly advised the executive to implement the court order. That's a good thing. However, I think that the learned Attorney General is misadvising the General Court Martial. The insinuation in the remarks of the Attorney General is that Court Martial keep holding on to these people until the DPP determines whether or not to take over this matter. I think that that's ultra-vires. Because for all of these people who are being held, Dr. Kizza Besigye, Obed Lutale, NUP political prisoners that have been held for over 4 years now, the Supreme Court said all those matters under the court-martial should cease with immediacy. Now, Article 120 of our country's constitution, which provides for the office of the DPP, when you go all the way to number 6 under Article 120, it says that in the exercise of their authority, the DPP shall not be under the control or manipulation of anybody. So nobody is meant to give any order or directive to the DPP. What the Learned Attorney General seems to be saying is that now the court-martial is going to be directing the DPP to say, we have these matters, you take them up. That's against the law. What's meant to happen, Right Honourable Speaker, is that the court-martial is meant to issue with immediacy release orders for these people, because the court-martial no longer has any authority over these people. Completely release them, and then the DPP, in her choosing and in her investigations, if she determines that maybe there is any matter that's meant to come before the civilian courts, that can happen. But you see, the two courts are disjointed. Honourable, there is some information, if you'll allow, from...
In just a second, Right Honourable Leader of the Opposition, they have actually, from the communication of the Attorney General, they have actually already interfered with the independence of the DPP by telling her to go and liaise. So it is not that the DPP is not under control. They have already controlled her by telling her to go and liaise with the court-martial.
Can no longer be classified as traffic jam, but a crisis in its own style. Right Honourable Speaker, the point of concern as I raise this matter now is the risk we are running as a country of having trucks filled with thousands of liters of fuel stuck in traffic jam for hours in a congested load, on a congested load, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some of us don't want to be prophets of doom, but it would be very bad if we don't discuss this. That if it is not just for the grace of the Lord who protects us Ugandans, any slight mistake, Right Honourable Speaker, and we will lose thousands of people and property on that road. In case of just a little fire, Right Honourable Speaker, or something near to that, Mr. Speaker, would sit here if some of us are not victims and count the losses. I know it is not easy to construct a road, but I think that there are technical things we can do to mitigate the problem, Mr. Speaker. For example, I remember some years back when I was young, trailers carrying goods from the would move at a particular time.
Honourable numbers, on matters of national importance, we have a time limit. So I said the 2 minutes, we are now in 3. Just let's go on prayers.
Right Honourable Speaker, I want to pray that the Minister of Works and Transport comes up with interim provisions to mitigate the crisis.
No, please, Honourable numbers, conclude your...
To mitigate the crisis on the Kampala-Jinja Highway, I so pray.